the keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Time to talk about 49ers offensive line again, because it's time to talk about that swing tackle. And you can see Alex swinging back and forth over there. It's going to be an interesting conversation. The 49ers have a lot of options, but how many of these options actually make sense? That's what we're going to get into.
Look, you could name a lot of guys who could be swing tackles for the 49ers, because in a shocking turn of events, they have a lot of guys who used to play tackle.
Yeah.
Who play other positions, but also still could play tackle. So there's actual names you could throw out there, and you wouldn't be wrong. But the reality is that there's only probably a handful of guys, a few guys, who could truly be the swing tackle for the 49ers that are in the conversation for it. So we're going to get to that. But before we do, let us know who you think it could be right down in the comment section, and then like and subscribe. Swing on over and hit that notification bell as well. That way you get notified for all the other videos. If you see what I did there, it's a theme because we're swinging around for the tackles. And who's the first name on this offensive line that comes to mind as a swing tackle for the 49ers?
I think the guys that make the most sense right away that you would sort of think of is Colton McKivitz, who sort of took over that role a little bit at the end of the year. You saw them go with him instead of Jalen Moore to back up Trent Williams. So he would be somebody that's in the conversation. And, of course, Justin Skule, who most people believed would be the leader in the clubhouse coming into 2021. Of course, he suffers the knee injury. He's out for the year, and that whole thing changes. But they've added some extra people to this mix as well. You got Spencer Burford, who in a shocking development was a tackle in college. They have Nick Zakelj in a shocking development was a tackle in college. There's a consistent theme with the 49ers. They have a lot of options. That's what you were alluding to. So who plays the swing tackle role is going to kind of be determined by who plays on the interior. Because if Jalen Moore plays guard, then Daniel Brunskill could potentially be the swing tackle. And if that was to happen, he's the outright best swing tackle the 49ers have. Daniel Brunskill would be at a different level than the other guys. I think that if Brunskill is playing that position, then you got to put Jalen Moore in the mix to be a swing tackle. So I think there's a lot of options for the 49ers. I think the ones that make the most sense for the Niners are Burford, of course, who's a rookie. I don't know if you really want a rookie to do that, but then Skule, Colton McKivitz, and then Jalen Moore. So those are the four options I think that I've narrowed it down to. Hopefully by the end of this episode, we'll get it down to like one or two. What do you think?
I don't know. Who knows? Who freaking knows? Because the reality is they have way too many guys who've played way too many positions on the offensive line, and that they want playing way too many positions on the O-line. They want this. I don't know how else to explain it. The reality is Daniel Brunskill is the best swing tackle option on this football team, but he's your starting right guard. And unless someone can beat him out there, he's not your swing tackle. So what do? Do you go with the veteran experience in Colton McKivitz and Justin Skule? Do you take a chance with one of these young guys that you've drafted in Spencer Burford or potentially even Jalen Moore? Because I think those are the realistic options. I think you and I both believe Nick Zakelj is an interior option that they're grooming and developing to be a guy who takes over here in the future. So those seem like the four most reasonable options. Now, we could go with what we've seen in the past, right? What we've seen in the past from the 49ers, and is stability. They like stability. They love themselves some veteran guys on the offensive line. They don't typically roll with the youngins unless they absolutely have to, which would make me believe that Jalen Moore would have the heads up. But the Niners did something in this draft that I didn't expect. They took Spencer Burford pretty early in this draft. Yeah. Much earlier than I expected them to even think about or address O-line. Maybe they believe this guy could be the answer, that this guy could be the solution right now to be able to play both sides of the ball, both sides of the football, left and right tackle, effectively.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know how Chris Forster is going to approach this, because John Benton, definitely, the old offensive line coach, definitely had a very defined role for who was going to be the swing tackle. You saw it from year to year, and that's why they had a Justin Skule or a Daniel Brunskill. He made a lot of sense with what he chose. Now, one thing Forster kind of did last year was go with a left and a right system, right?
True.
Jalen Moore, he didn't really want him to play on the right side. He didn't feel that he was comfortable, so they went with Compton. Compton was the right guy. could they go again with a situation where they go left and right, and maybe keeping 9 offensive linemen affords them to do that with every single position? Could they go Spencer Burford at right tackle? They could go Colton McKivitz at left tackle, which they did last year. And then on the interior, you have Jalen Moore at the right guard spot behind Daniel Brunskill, Nick Zakelj at the left guard spot where he's been taking snaps, but he could also do some things with the center position as well. I think that's what they could do, is go more of a left-right system, especially if they feel confident in both guys. So there might actually be a situation where it's not a swing tackle per se, but a backup tackle at each position. Would that make more sense to have Spencer Burford and Colton McKivitz as your 2 tackles instead of just having one of those guys go back and forth?
I think it's, in a perfect world, yes, 100%, because then you don't have guys who have to play both spots, work on technique and form both spots. They only have to worry about assignments on one side when you're game planning and things of that nature.
Yeah.
That'd be great. In a perfect world. Do we live in that perfect world, Ant? Because we have a lot of talent at a lot of positions. And keeping an O-lineman, an extra one on this roster, on this 53-man, means somewhere else gets weaker.
Yeah.
Is that the best thing for San Francisco? I don't know.
Well, it depends on what gets weaker. If you're only keeping 5 wide receivers, you can keep 9 offensive linemen.
Agreed.
That's with us still keeping 11 defensive linemen, which is a tremendous amount of defensive linemen. The only way you would have problems keeping a 9th offensive lineman is if you wanted to keep a 12th defensive lineman. And if you did that, then you're going to have to walk away from one of these guys. And if you had to walk away, you would have to rely on a young player. I don't know if Spencer Burford's going to be ready to roll right away as a tackle option this year. There could also be questions about Mike McGlinchey. I think he's going to be healthy, but I know a lot of people are bringing up, McGlinchey may not be healthy. And in that case, you might have to keep a Colton McKivitz or a Justin Skule on the team just so they can go out there and get those reps, because a young guy might not be prepared and ready to go yet. But I think it's an interesting conversation. I think if I had to pick somebody as a leader in the clubhouse, I would go with Colton McKivitz. Even though he was released last year and they brought him back, he's a guy that can play a multitude of positions, but we've seen him do it. I mean, he had a pretty good performance against Von Miller. It's not easy to go out there in those big-time games, Week 18, everything on the line. And
you've played no snaps all season?
No snaps, and you got to go out there and play left tackle against a Hall of Famer. That's not an easy task.
With another Hall of Famer lined up next to him?
Yeah, it was tough. It was really tough on Colton McKivitz, and I thought he held in the best he could. He gave up 2 sacks, and one of them could have been absolutely costly. It could have finished the game off. Good. It didn't, however. He went in there and competed, so I think he would be the leader in the clubhouse. But I do want to hold back full disclosure on who it's going to be until I see Spencer Burford in person. I really want to see him out at practice, see what he can do.
Well, I think he answers a lot of questions.
Yeah.
If he looks like the real deal, then McKivitz and Skule both become expendable. You don't need to keep them. You don't need to keep them both around, because you can keep Burford on one side and you can have Moore who plays the other side as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do a lot of different things with that. Burford is going to answer and solve a lot of problems for this 49ers offensive line, especially if he's ready. He's ready to take on that kind of role. I'm not talking about a starting role. I'm talking about a backup role in terms of being able to get prepared, develop, work on his game and improve.
Right.
If they feel he's close to being starting ready, he's a year away, then this makes it a whole heck of a lot harder on a guy like Skule and a guy like McKivitz. I think the reality is, I think the Niners ideally would like to be able to stash Skule this year on the practice squad. Of all the guys they currently have, they would like to be able to sneak him down, especially coming off the injury he's coming off of. They know he's probably about a year away from being the best version of himself. So if you could find a way to get him down to the practice squad, it's even better for your team, because you got a guy down there who you know what he's capable of, and he's a year closer to being at full 100%. And then you get an even better look at your offensive line in the 2023 campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you might be trying to decide, right, who's the easiest one to sneak to your practice squad when you're making the final cuts.
True. I
think that going with a Justin Skule, if you release him, the reality is I don't know if he can make it to the practice squad, only because if you look at Seattle's roster, their offensive line is absolute hot garbage.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
I was watching someone saying the Seahawks are not as bad as everyone says they are.
They're that bad. Their offensive line needs a lot of work.
They just got a lot worse, too, because they didn't even get Baker Mayfield. I don't know how much that would have helped them, but it would have been better than the situation they have now.
It would have been better, and that's a problem for them, and they're wanting to return to the run game. So a Justin Skule might be enticing to them, but I think a Colton McKivitz would be enticing to them. We know for sure a Nick Zakelj or Spencer Burford would be enticing to them. So the 49ers have a tough decision to make here. Somebody's going to be the one that's on the way out, and it could be the loser of this, position battle, because it could be a veteran right now. It could be a guy that has to play both sides of the ball if Burford, Zakelj aren't going to be ready to go, as well as them transitioning potentially to the inside, because I do think they're going to be looking at them there. So we'll see what happens when we get into camp and who's going to be the guy. We saw Tom Compton come out of nowhere last year.
True.
Maybe somebody comes out of nowhere this year. Maybe one of these other guys plays up to snuff. Maybe Colton McKivitz is a lot better than what we've seen. Maybe Justin Skule is back. We're going to find out. I think this is going to be one of those interesting ones to watch, because I don't think the backup tackle spot is comforting to anyone's mind. I mean, Mike McGlinchey, you got him there. A lot of people aren't really fans of him, but then after that, there's just a lot of questions. We'll see. I think Colton McKivitz is a solid player, but he's got to get better if he's going to be able to hold on to this swing tackle role.
He's got to. He's got to improve. And look, they're going to have ample opportunity. They're going to have plenty of chances, plenty of opportunities. But because there's so many potential guys, Ant, it means limited amounts of time. So you have to seize and take advantage of your moments in training camp. You may not get a bunch of snaps. You may not get a bunch of looks and opportunities because you're sharing it with a lot of names. And this coaching staff is trying to put together the best 8 or 9 guys that they possibly can, which means you're not going to get extended runs and extended looks. And with the preseason being one game shorter, one less game as well to prove it and demonstrate and show that, hey, you got the stuff. You need to be one of the 53. This is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a battle, and I'm all for it, Ant.
Yeah, I mean, I love that they've thrown so many guys into the mix. You know, somebody's going to come away with this job, and I think it's going to be a really good football player. And I like the way that they've continued to draft players later in the rounds. Now, Spencer Burford is one of the earliest draft picks that's going to be a part of this, but they've got guys, that are 4th, 5th, 6th round that are going to be competing for this job. And I think when it comes down to it, that's a good way to spend your late round draft capital on guys who could develop into good players. And so far, Chris Forster's done a good job of developing them. We've seen players that they've brought in that run drafted, like Daniel Brunskill, that have been able to step in and give the 49ers significant snaps. We'll see if that trend continues. There's going to be some questions right now with the center position. So we need the tackle position, especially the swing tackle position, answered early. And hopefully the 49ers have somebody that just steps in and solidifies that position. Agreed.
Ant is leaning towards Colton McKivitz. And you know what, Ant? Much like you and Trent Williams, I'm going to go in the Colton McKivitz camp, because Trent Williams has even come out and said that he believed that he shouldn't have played in that NFC Championship game. He wasn't 100% healthy, and that the team would have been better off had Colton McKivitz played. That's some pretty high praise coming from someone like Trent Williams, who feels like Colton McKivitz, at that point with how his health was a better option for San Francisco than him. Now, he's also semi-tooting his own horn. He's not doing it per se in like the, I am so great that even at 50% most of the time I'm better than everybody else except for Colton McKivitz. It's more praise to Colton than it is anything else, that he believes that he was a good option and just as good as what Trent was given his health state. I think that speaks volumes as well about not only maybe the coaching staff, but how the room feels about Colton McKivitz also.
Yeah, I'm curious how quick Spencer Burford is going to be able to step up. I think if Spencer Burford is able to play at a high level, then Colton McKivitz could get relegated to like a left tackle spot behind Trent Williams. But if not, I think he would be asked to man both positions. I think the same would be asked of Skule, because you want Burford, Zakelj to be able to develop. And those guys, you need them on this roster. You can't possibly cut them and risk them not being a part of this team, because I think those two guys are just absolutely nasty in the run game, and you're going to want them in the future. So I'm excited about their potential, but it all hinges on the fact that Colton McKivitz hopefully can live up to the expectations they had, where they believed at one point he could have been the starting left tackle for their football team. They wouldn't have been able to trade for Trent Williams. Live up to the expectations, Colton, so that we have a very solid offensive line, and maybe he will.
Hey, I would absolutely love it, and it would make the team that much better and that much deeper. But let's know what you think down below right now, Cutback Crew. Who do you believe the swing tackle is going to be? Is it McKivitz? Is it Skule? Is it Burford? Is it someone like Jalen Moore, or is it someone else entirely? Nick Zakelj is actually the guy you're going with, or maybe you're the Mr. Corey camp, that it's Daniel freaking Brunskill, or maybe it's Mike McGlinchey if Daniel Brunskill takes over as the right tackle.
It's actually Schluter. That's who it's going to be.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Schluter.
Sam Schluter.
Always forget about Sam Schluter. We want to hear from you, Cutback Crew. So make sure you're commenting down below, and while you're doing that, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell, because we're almost to 3K, Ant.
Almost.
We're close.
Yeah, we're getting close to 3K, so we'd appreciate, a subscription if you've been watching and you appreciate what we do, or we would really appreciate you going ahead and hitting that subscribe button. You could always take it back if you end up not liking us, but hopefully you wouldn't, because it's fun to talk about 49ers, and it's fun to talk about it from a coach's perspective in a positive manner. Why not? You want the people that were sitting there when the playoffs were out of reach, it seemed, and we're sitting there saying, whoa, we're not off the cliff yet. Just hang in there. And we ended up being right. Thank you to the 49ers for helping us be right.
It's true.
But just hold on.
Just hold on. We're not really going home. We're going to training camp and start a football season, which for some of you may feel like home, but we're almost there. So yeah, a little bit more of an optimistic spin here. Not a positive spin on the 49ers, an optimistic spin.
Yeah.
When they're actually out of it, we'll tell you, just like we did in 2020 when things were grim. And it was like, look, the reality is this team's not going anywhere right now. It's not healthy. You can't do it. 2021, we did the same exact thing. Things aren't great, but they're not done. And they weren't done yet. Ant made it all the way to the NFC Championship game, and now we're going to see if they can duplicate that performance. We're looking forward to talking more position battles, more conversations, more topics, more news, more intel, maybe some Jimmy Garoppolo news coming soon. Hopefully we will see. But until the next one, Cutback Crew and the Faithful, stay safe.
Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.